Clem. No, introduce yourself.
I'm Clem.
Pat.
I'm Pat.
I'm Sandy.
I'm Kristen.
Brian.
And we're the audience. Let's give it up for Crystal.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming. And I'm happy to be presenting with you today. And I have a question to start things off. How many of you have been put to sleep by a poor speaker? Almost all of you, I'm sure, or at least made bored to the point where you thought perhaps you were going to go to sleep anyway and wanted to get out. Well, good news. You don't have to worry about that today, because I'm here to talk to you about inflection. According to Webster's dictionary, inflection is a change in the pitch or loudness of one's voice. Inflection can be interesting when it's used in speech, and it can impact the audience in what is understood of the message. Or, speeches can be very flat and dry. The audience loses interest, and the point is lost. According to Stephen Beebe in his work, Effects of Eye Contact, Posture, and Vocal Inflection upon Credibility and Comprehension. So you think about Mount Rushmore when you think about building a speech. Inflection is but one rock in its foundation. Let me share an example of what happened to me recently to demonstrate this point. I was excited about my first day of work with a new company. I was looking forward to learning about the company. And I was excited from the moment I woke up to the moment I got in the car. I was happy to find my parking spot in the parking lot. And I was more than excited to show my badge at the front door so I could be let into the building. So when I found my spot at my new cube and was given instruction, I also learned that on that same day, there was going to be a special visit from the president of the company. He was going to fly in for what they called a town hall meeting. That's when the entire company, everyone in that building, would go down to the large hall, and we would sit and we would listen to about an hour or so of speeches from the different parts of management, and then the final speaker would be the president of the company. So at the right time, they got us up out of our seats, and we filed downstairs, and you could hear the music before we even got to the steps to get down to the hall. It was so exciting. I was out of my mind. It was my first day. There's rock and roll playing in the background, and everybody was filing down to hear about how wonderful we were and about how super the company was doing. So we found our seats in the hall. I tried to get mine closest to the free food where I could still see the speakers, because you kind of have to think about that when you enter a meeting, because you're not sure what it's going to be like. There was music playing, like I said. There was a huge screen behind the podium. There were movie cameras, because apparently they were doing a webcast that day of the meeting itself. And the meeting began with speeches from all the management. And they were building it up. They were saying things like, this company has never done as well as it did this last year. We have billions of dollars in assets that we're holding. We expect more. We're buying companies. And they told us it was all because of the good work that we had done. Now, it was my first day. So. But I felt like I was part of the team. I was excited. And we all sat quietly, and it was building up to this wonderful speech that the president was going to give, or so we thought. So he heard the drum roll, and he got up out of his chair, and he swaggered up to the podium. He was dressed the part. I'm sure his suit was worth more than my car, although I like my car. It was probably worth more than my car. And he began to speak. And it was at that moment that the air was let out of my balloon. He was boring. There was absolutely no inflection in his voice. And his message was entirely lost from the moment he started to speak, because everyone knew that it was going to be painful to listen to his entire message. So how do you think I felt about that? Huh? Do you think I was excited to hear this president of the company my first day at work after he began to speak? No, exactly. I was bored to death. And I was disappointed because I had heard these wonderful speeches building up to his speech, and now I had to sit and listen to him. He sounded like a wet dish rag. I didn't know if he was happy about the company. I didn't know if he was even excited to be there in front of all of us, or hundreds of us sitting there. And it was quiet. Nobody was responding to him at all. In fact, I'm not sure, but I think the person sitting next to me was snoring by the time it was done. And it was all because his speech was so poorly conveyed, with absolutely no inflection in his voice whatsoever. It was just monotone the entire time. It was horrible. When we were leaving the hall, I don't recall anyone talking about how wonderful the company was doing. I don't recall anyone saying anything like, boy, that was great, or, now I feel like working harder. All I heard, and I was involved in the conversations as well, is how horrible the president was at speaking, and how could he obtain a position as the president of the company if he could not speak in public. Instead of being enthusiastic and excited that our company was doing well, as it was, we walked out of there knowing not where we stood, not how good the company was doing. We were all confused, maybe a little disappointed in the fact that we had to listen to a man like that speak. All because of the lack of inflection. Let's look at this slide on the impact of the use of inflection. No or misplaced inflection during a speech provides a poor first impression of the speaker. There's a loss of credibility and confidence in the speaker. There's a loss of interest in what the speaker is saying. And there are at times the question of whether or not the statements are actually questions or are they statements because of the misplaced inflection in his voice. Now, the proper use of inflection provides a good first impression. It enhances the credibility and confidence in the speaker, and it's easy to maintain the interest of the audience, as well as there is a clear distinction between statements and questions. Now, I'm going to have a short Q&A here, and I'm going to start it off by asking you, can anyone think of a speaker in today's society you consider to be a good speaker? Kristen?
President Obama.
President Obama. I figured he would be one of the first to be mentioned. Did you have an idea of someone else?
I was going to say President Obama too, but perhaps Jay Leno.
Okay, Jay Leno. Well, what makes President Obama, for example, a good speaker? Anyone have any ideas? I mean, what to you, what makes him a good speaker? Clint?
Well, first of all, he knows his facts, and he presents them in a way the average man can understand. He doesn't speak over the top of people's heads.
That's right. What about the way he speaks? Do you trust what he's saying? Is it easy to believe in him? Yes, I think it is. And I think it has a lot to do with the many different aspects of speech, public speaking, including inflection. There are other parts, the way he stands, the way he holds himself, his eye contact. But inflection is very important, and I believe that he uses it masterfully. So, that's good. Think about President Obama. When he spoke in front of Congress, he used firm words with anchors at the end of each statement. He said something like, the American people need to make a change at home. Period. He didn't say it as a question. He didn't say the American people need to make a change at home. He was very, very short and distinct in the way that he stopped his sentence. It was a statement. There's no question it was a statement. So why is it important to use inflection properly? As a speaker, you don't want to be asleep at the helm. Develop your speeches with inflection in mind. Kenneth Snyder said in his book, What? I have to give a speech, the second edition. Enthusiasm involves inflection, which is contagious. Even a speech on a flat tire can be exciting. So I encourage you to learn from my examples. And when you find yourself speaking in front of an audience, realize that the point you are trying to make can be lost or misdirected if you do not control the inflection of your voice. Thank you very much. Have a great day.